So I will go ahead and get this council meeting underway. And with that, I would at this time call it to order. Before the invocation and the pledge, again, I would just remind folks that if you are not addressing the meeting, that you keep your line muted if you can to help keep the background and feedback noise whatnot at a minimum. And so with that, I will lead us in a invocation at this time. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for this day, and thank you for once again the opportunity to come together and meet as a city council. We would just pray that the voices that we hear this evening from concerned residents would be taken to heart sincerely, and that the expressions that we would make as representatives of the city would be sincere from our mind as well. We pray for all of those who continue to be affected around the world by the COVID-19 outbreak. We pray for all of the unrest throughout our country, that there would be solutions brought to bear that would be impactful for people and meaningful for people. And we just pray that all those things that we do tonight would be in your will, in your holy name. Amen. And now the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Up first, I know that Alderman Bratton told me earlier he would be absent, so Clerk Hunziker, our previous roll call work for you?
Yes.
Okay, so we show Alderman Bratton absent and the rest of the committee or the city council present. And that will move us into the consideration of council minutes from June 9th, 2020, which of course included in your packet. And I would entertain any questions or comments on the minutes at this time. All right, hearing none, I'd entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Alderman Baskin, second.
All right, show a motion from Alderman McComb, a second from Mr. Bastian. Excuse me, I had my phone muted. I show a motion from Alderman McComb, a second from Alderman Bastian. In the case of the minutes approval, I would just ask that all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? No. We'll show the motion carries approval of the minutes as presented. That takes us into the accounts payable registers. Included in your packet, we have three registers, 960, 961, and 962. In case you were wondering, I think it's clear the ones on 961 are mercy grants. Any other questions on the bills?
Mayor?
Yes, Ms. Campos.
Yes, I have a couple of questions from this 962, and that it is on page 3. ESA Incorporated, replace model. Is that for a computer system for police? 2088 services.
All right, could we, I think I heard someone say that may be something for the sewer department. Mr. Gladson, can you speak to that perhaps?
Yeah, that is to replace a soft starter on pump 2 at our river lift station, and to set time delay relays in the cabinet as well.
Thank you. Then there is another question that I have, and it's with added that we have two different statements for 11,114. Pardon my ignorance, but why do we have two?
Sandra Ripley, can you speak to that?
I didn't follow the question, I'm sorry.
The question was in regard to page 4 on list 962. We have a bill from Kerber, and Breckle in the amount of $11,114, broken up into 2 different invoices. And I believe the question was just why it was busted up into those 2 separate invoices.
I understand. That is a split between general fund and water sewer. It's a partial billing for our audit.
Yes, it's actually one invoice.
Oh, okay. Thank you. One last question. I did my homework exactly. Now, on page 6, we have Southern Business Machine Incorporated, contract for $1,225. Just enlighten me, please. What department?
It is
Our
on,
admin.
it's on page 6. I don't know if that's a postal machine or what that is.
Southern Business Machine Incorporated. I have no idea. Yes, that is our postage machine. Oh, okay.
And Sandra, is that an annual contract or what?
Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, that's it.
Thank you very much, Gloria. Anyone else have any questions on the bills? I seem to be getting a lot of feedback from one particular phone. I'm not sure which one it is, but again, just a reminder that if you're not addressing the council, to please mute your phone. Thank you. With that being said, if there are no other questions on the bills, I'd entertain a motion to pay the bills.
So moved.
Second.
All right, I heard a motion from Mr. McComb, and first I heard a motion or a second from Mr. Urbis. On this item, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? No. All right, motion carries. Thank you very much. That takes us into the regular committee and commission reports. First, we have Budget and Finance chaired by W.J. Fenton. W.J.
Thank you, Mayor. We have no items under old business. Under new business, we have presentation of financial reports by Scott Evans, Budget Officer Mr. Evans.
Thank you, Alderman Pittman. So you have a large stack of reports tonight, so I'm not going to go through every single thing, just because of the complexities of this type of meeting and the vast amount of numbers. So, but I do want to highlight the first page on top of the stack, which essentially shows the city's balance sheet as of May 31st, and of course it shows each fund as well across the face of the page. So citywide, as of May 31st, the city had $24,525,000 in total assets. We had total debts of $14,179,000, and of course, most of that, of course, is the 2 loans on the water fund, the vast majority of that. And then, so that means the city's portion of those assets, or our equity, is $10,345,000. Compare that to the end of 2019, and we are slightly ahead of where we were on that date. And if you go to page 3, you can see the results of the activity that got us to that point. So the third page is the income statement by fund for the first 5 months of 2020. So as you'll see across the bottom, all funds have done pretty decently, considering all the uncertainty out there. We do have a slight surplus as of 5 months in general fund, and a few of the other funds too. The one I've always been concerned about, and you've probably heard me voice these concerns, is the water fund. In recent years, we've had a number of unexpected things come up, and therefore we've had a couple of years of losses in that fund. So, after after we raised the water rate somewhat in January, I've been very anxious to see how that is actually playing out and working. And it appears to be certainly helping because through 5 months, we have a net surplus of $35,000 in the water sewer fund. And that is after making the first of the two semi-annual large loan payments, which usually draws things down a lot at one time. And so, that won't be due again until November. So, I think we're in a good place. We could certainly be a lot worse. And knock on wood, we have not had any major infrastructure catastrophe so far this year. Now, we know that can happen any time. But I certainly would rather be going into some kind of unforeseen catastrophe where we are than where we're good. So there's some good news there. So I want to highlight that. The next page, I haven't showed this report for a few months, and this is the healthcare costs for the first 5 months. And so through the first 5 months, we have spent $180,000 on general fund on healthcare, comprised of the various pieces of that, and the water sewer numbers through 5 months is $39,000, so a total of $219,000. So if you project those out, it's still very early to do so, but if you do that, so far we're well within budget, and so that's a good place to be as well. Doesn't mean we won't have some unforeseen things later in the year, such as the renewal. That could always be a lot higher number, but we're hopeful that this method we're using mitigates that by us taking on some of this small risk, and therefore the insurance company doesn't have to take on all these small things and artificially disrupt their experience. Right? So anyway, long story short, I think we're doing very decent right now in the healthcare cost line. And the next page is just looking at the general fund through 5 months, just kind of isolating it by itself and the budget. So as we saw on the earlier reports, through the 5 months we have spent just around $2,050,000, somewhere close to that. And for the same period of time, we budgeted $2.3 million. So we're running under budget nicely so far in almost all departments. There are a few exceptions, which I can explain those, but in a good place there too right now. And the revenues, now our revenues are actually a little bit lower than what we expected at this point, but again, a lot of that can be said on the fact that our games tax is down. As I mentioned last month, there was a delay in the normal large income tax payment we would have gotten because of April 15th being moved to July, and therefore I'm not surprised that number is lower than budget. But fortunately, our spending is probably below budget at this point, so that's why we have the slight surplus. So we're doing fine in those departments. And the two that are negative, you'll notice that the street department is negative, and also the insurance line is negative, which indicates that they are spending more than their budget. That's not to knock the street department, because unfortunately for Darren, he had no control over this, but kind of after we did the budget, we decided to do the Venture Lane project and pay for the gravel and everything out there. So we charged $40,000 or $50,000, whatever the cumulative cost of that project is out there, to the street department infrastructure line, which he had no control of. So it makes the department look a little bit obviously overextended, which is not. We just had to park it someplace, and that's where we parked it. And then the insurance line, that's over time to time, just simply because we pay those insurances quarterly typically, and so the budget will catch up with that. It's a timing issue. So the last thing I want to show you is just simply the cash position. I showed you the entire city balance sheet, which includes cash, obviously, but just looking at the cash itself, as of May 31st, we had $5,899,000. So in mind, we had to pay that semi-annual loan payment, which is close to $500,000. So we're always low on the cash side at the end of May and November when that happens. So otherwise, we're in pretty good shape there too. And that's really all I wanted to talk about. Is there any questions on any of these? Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you, Scott. If there's no more questions for Scott, we'll move on. Next item is review and approval of prevailing wage ordinance. I'll turn that over to Attorney Heller, I guess.
Thank you, Boss. You have in your packets already, I think, and the clerk has the ordinance. We have to pass these every year. Richard's drafted them. Scott, I think, has reviewed them. They're ready to be passed.
All right, do we have a motion to approve the new prevailing wage ordinance?
Alderman Hughes will make the motion.
All right, do we have a second?
Alderman Ashton will second that.
Okay. Clerk Conductor, would you like to do a roll call vote?
Yes. Alderman Hughes,
Yes.
Alderman Curry Woodsman,
Yes.
Alderman Brown,
Yes.
Alderman Pearson,
Yes.
Alderman McComb,
Yes.
Alderman Irvis,
Yes.
Alderman Bastian,
Yes.
Alderman Campos,
Yes.
Alderman Pittman.
Yeah. How about that motion carries? Next item is mobile ranch action on the delinquent water bill. Mayor, I'm not sure who listens over this.
I can speak to it. The mobile ranch trailer park has had some issues with paying their water bill, and I would, at this time, like to ask Catherine Volley to kind of give us a little bit of an update on where that stands, how much money is owed, and then I think also maybe Attorney Heller may have some update on what we might want to do. I can say this before I turn it over, that we do license mobile home trailer parks to be have to pay a fee to operate in the city, and they have not paid their license fee the last 2 years. So I'll go first to Ms. Volley, and then after she is done to Mr. Heller. Catherine?
Yes, so they have not made payment in almost close to a year now, and they currently owe us almost $5,000.
All right.
They have stopped responding. They do not take my calls. They do not respond to emails, and they have been reached out to on a couple of occasions by our attorney.
And they have a master meter situation there, or help describe to me what the situation is with the metering.
Yes, they do have a master meter there, and then there are also individual meters.
So what we're talking about is the money owed on the master meter and not necessarily for individual customers inside the park.
So yes, however, they have allowed some people to have water included in their rent. So unfortunately, some of those individual residences who are using water, it is also not being paid for through the master meter as well.
All right. Anything else on this issue, Catherine, that you want to share?
No, other than we have done our best to turn it over to the attorney to try to take it a step further to make sure that we are getting that payment.
All right. Thank you. Attorney Heller, your thoughts?
Mayor, this is one that we're somewhat puzzled about what to do. We can bring a small claims action against them, get a judgment against them, have that judgment registered against that real estate. We don't have an asset we can collect from very easily. their money from individual lot rent people in not large amounts, and we would have to garnish every tenant over and over again to collect them out of their rents. So we can at any time begin citing them for operating without a license. Each day that they continue to operate without a license can be an additional violation. We can start stacking up citation dollars on them. I'm assuming they have major financing, so at some point in time, their financiers are going to have to deal with the question. But we don't have a very effective sue and get judgment collection device. We could, at any time we wanted to, issue notice to cease and desist operating a mobile home park, shut the mobile home park down. I'm sure if we did that, we'd get some attention from the bank. But we have citizens living there, so you have to consider that in making a decision to do that. Quite frankly, council, I don't think we have effective tools to make them address this short of doing just that, because they've never ever paid their fee to be operating here. So unless we do something, I don't know why they ever would.
Well, it would be my
Is
recommendation.
this,
Go ahead, Gary.
is this company from California or someplace?
It's the investors and the bosses and stuff are in California somewhere. I think it's an Illinois company. I don't remember that. We've got the charter in the office. I just don't remember that off the top of my head.
And we give them a ticket for that, and if they don't show up before, issue a warrant.
Who do you issue the warrant for?
Well, if they don't show up before, if we, or can we just shut the water off at the main thing down there?
Well, and you can do that, but that also affects the people living in those trailers. So we have the power to do that, certainly. Whether that's the thing we want to do, I don't.
This Alderman Pearson, we can't legally cut off water until the COVID thing's over, can we?
Bill, I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. I wouldn't be surprised.
I don't think they can. I think we have to leave water on until this thing is kind of settled. From what I understand, the legal thing is that.
On page
This
4,
may have been a problem ever since I've been on the council, even before these owners. I would say do what we have to do to pull the dump back down and get it over with.
This is Alderman Hughes. I have a question. Attorney Heller, at one time there was a local manager of that we had some contact with. Is there still such a person?
I have never had contact with that person. That may be Eric, and that may be the water department, but I've never had contact with that person. I don't know who that is.
Okay. Does anyone on the line know if there is a local manager?
Yeah, Miss Hughes,
There
this is
is.
Mayor Stevens, and yes, there is a manager that lives on site. His name is Joe, and he lives there with his wife and children. And so, I have been in contact with him about this issue over the period of time, and he has attempted to reach out to his bosses on my behalf, but obviously that hasn't been successful. It's my opinion that what we ought to do is we ought to pursue the fact that they have been essentially operating without a license and stack up, fees and fines for that, because I think that is something that is obviously enforceable under our ordinance, and that's eventually going to get their attention out in California. I really don't want to just shut off the water or shut them down, because ultimately that place is, in some instance, or maybe you could say, housing of last resort for a lot of people, and I don't want to be in the business of making people homeless. But we do have to do something about it.
Thank you, Mayor, I agree with you. Mayor,
Alderman
this is our
Pittman.
council.
I heard a lot of folks all at once. I'm gonna go to, Pittman and then Campos.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Do we know how many of the mobile homes down there are fed off of that master meter and not on an individual meter?
Catherine, do you know the answer to that? I don't know if this Valley is still on the line.
If it's not too many, would it do us any good to put all of those on individual meters and not allow them to have the master meter?
Okay, what's the question, WJ? I'll try to help you.
How many of those individual mobile homes down there are on hooked up to the master meter and not an individual meter?
Okay, every single trailer down there does have its own individual meter. There's each row has a water line that runs through it, and those are all connected to the master meter. So essentially, there's one entry point into the trailer park, and each house has its own individual service. I'm not sure why those services aren't registered with us, but I can see so every bit of the water that goes to the master meter also gets distributed through the residential meters. And residential use should total the amount of water used through the master meter. And if there is a difference in that, then the owner of the trailer park owes the difference, which is the reason for the master meter.
Okay, so it's not just something where we could switch to individual billing instead of allowing them to collect that and not pay us.
Absolutely, I believe that we can. I mean, we could go down and see how many of those trailers aren't being hooked up through a residential meter and make them sign up for service. But you can still have some water loss through hydrant flushing or whatever kind of septic services that you may run into there, and any kind of water leaks or breaks that they may have between the houses and the master meter. So there was always a little bit of water left over that even when the bonds opened it, that they had to pay, a few $100s a month, make up the difference.
So in my opinion, and I don't know what anybody else is feeling this, but if we're able to bill people individually instead of allowing this company to collect that money, I mean, I think that's in our best, before we go after anything else. I'm not saying we shouldn't do that also for the licensing, but if we can get paid in the meantime for the water that's being used from here on out, that's probably in our best interest.
WJ, this is Ed Heller. I think what I'm hearing is that the trailer park owner leases some of those trailers to people with people not required to pay water, but the owner is paying water. And those bills, I believe Catherine is saying, are not being paid either. I don't think it's a question of we could go out and separately bill that trailer because the owners own that trailer and are covering that trailer.
Okay, that's my misunderstanding then.
So I don't think that's an effective direction. I think we need to either cite them daily, as the mayor says, or tell them to cease and desist, and whichever is the preference, Richard and Eric and I can work out the procedure for doing that.
Ed, Ed, I have a question for Ed.
Okay?
I'm in order.
The fines or whatever, can those then be leaned against the property?
Yes, they can be leaned against the property. They can be judgments against the property. Of course, we have a huge bank loan in front of us, I expect. And, whether or not we would be able to recover, it's another question. I don't know the financial strength of this company. I don't know if this individual company is just set up to own this trailer park and they don't care whether it fails or not. We don't know those things.
Right. Well, it's really aggravating that they're collecting money basically to pay the water bill and then they're not paying it.
Just aggravating, especially to Catherine.
I believe Ms. Campos had something she wanted to share.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. If we keep finding the debt is gonna keep accumulating. And obviously, unless we shake them really hard, they won't do anything. So I am more inclined to start getting them through the cease and desist, and that will give the tenants and explain to the tenants the situation that the trailer park is working without licensing from the city. So the possibility of them moving from the trailer park, it can be near in the year or so, or while this legal battle goes. But make the tenants aware of, and then probably they will refuse maybe to even pay rent to the landlord, because that's what we're gonna get through them. If the tenants stop paying them, they probably will pay attention. And the only way I think is that if you tell them the possibility of you having to move out of here, it's a reality. So maybe you want to start looking for another place to move. And send that letter to the owner of the trailer park, and maybe they will react. Just an idea.
Thank you, Ms. Campos. I would ask our attorney, in terms of communication via the U.S. mail, registered letters, and whatnot, what has been sent to this point to the company in California, if anything?
Two certified letter demands for payment. One last, I believe, late September, and one a few weeks ago. I did not receive any response to either one. Both were also sent by email to the email address we have. No response by email either.
All right. So I wonder, is this something where we could hire a debt collection type of company? I know that the state does debt collection against old accounts of various sorts for us now. I don't know if that would be just something to sort of put in the hopper of ideas to consider here.
My thought on that is that that doesn't really incentivize them to pay. The debt collector can't penetrate their finances any better than we can.
All right, that's fair enough.
Mayor, I don't know if we would need a vote and a motion to do it, but I would say we issue them a citation tomorrow for the operating without a license, and then go by whatever the ordinance says, and every day after that we can cite them again, we just do that until, I see if that gets their attention. I mean, I don't know what that dollar amount is going to be, but it gets their bank, involved to where they'll want to pay those liens. And Ed, maybe you can answer them. I understand how it works from a banking standpoint, but not for municipalities' liens. If that dollar amount added up to a certain amount, could we foreclose and force them into a foreclosure? The bank into a foreclosure, or are we kind of stuck just waiting on that property to sell?
We can force them into a foreclosure, really, over $1. If we have a judgment against them for $1, we can foreclose that. There's a considerable cost to doing a foreclosure procedure all the way to the end. Usually that's between $2,000 and $3,000 for basic foreclosures that don't have too much rancor going on. it does get the bank's attention. They don't
I
want to go
think
through it.
ultimately they're going to pay any liens to, to keep their interest, in the property. But if, do we know for a fact that we're assuming there's a mortgage on the property? Is that something we know, or is it investors that, are behind that?
Actually, WJ, that's an assumption on my part, because of the way the thing was purchased, but I can find out tomorrow just exactly what that is as well.
If we need a motion to cite them starting tomorrow for the operating without a license, I would make that motion.
I don't really think we need a motion to enforce the existing ordinance. I think we can just direct our council to pursue that. And so if there are no objections, I would ask the attorney to pursue that line that Mr. Pittman has suggested.
We will do that.
I think just within the last year, the company's shown that they're very out of touch with what's going on at that property. I think they've gone through a couple of managers in the last couple of years, who have all come to the council at different times saying that they have very little communication with ownership also. I think we have to force them into showing a little, interest in keeping that property up and going.
Yeah, I think that's a proper assessment of the situation.
Are there any more questions or comments on this item? Is there any public comment under budget and finance? No comments, move out of budget.
Thank you, WJ. That takes us to Building and Grounds, chaired by Mr. Gary McComb. Gary?
Yes, sir, thank you. Under old business, we have nothing. Under new business, it's consideration of the shooting range agreement with the Murphysboro track. Did you get them a copy of this contract, Will?
Yes, I did, and I heard back from Scott Strack today. He said he had reviewed it and he was in support of the contract as it is written.
Okay, do we have a motion to accept this agreement?
Nervous, not good.
All in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Anybody against it, say no. That's all we have on building and grounds, Will. Is there any public comment on building and grounds? Hearing none, I think we can move on.
Thank you very much, Mr. McComb. That takes us to Community Relations, chaired by John Irvis. John?
Thank you, Mayor. We have no old business, no new business. Fortunately, kind of hard to do things these days in the community. Any public comment? Move on to this section.
Thank you very much, John. That takes us to Public Improvement, chaired by Alderman Mike Bastian. Mike?
Thank you, Mayor. We have nothing listed under old business. Under new business, we have the discussion regarding the condition of the property at the northeast corner of 17th and Walnut Street. As the chairman of the public improvement, I've had several complaints about the fenced-in area and the stuff that is inside it. I do believe, Mayor, that you indicated you had an anonymous written complaint as well.
That's right. Last week I received in the mail a letter from a person stating that they felt like the property at 17th and Walnut and Northeast Corner was unsightly and the city ought to do something about it.
Yeah, that's basically the complaints and inquiries I have received. I did have a in-depth conversation with Attorney Ed Heller. He and Attorney Blake are looking at different options that the city can do to move forward on that property. It's my understanding that I want to keep it on the agenda, and that Attorney Heller will report back at the next council meeting. Attorney Heller, do you have anything you'd like to add to that?
No, Mike, I don't. We're looking at that, trying to figure out a good way to address it.
Right, well, I appreciate that, and we'll just leave it on the agenda, and we will, discuss it at the next council meeting. Hopefully, we'll have some different options to take. With that being said, do we have any public comment?
Mike, what about the southwest corner?
I haven't had any complaints about that. Have you?
Well, yeah, I've had complaints about it, but nobody writing anything up. They just want to see a roof put on and the windows in it. And we're not got that done within almost for a year or two.
Yeah. Mayor, do you have anything to add to that, or any update on that? I don't have anything on that.
No, I wish I had something good to report about the old depot, but it's just kind of the same old song. I'm sure that if we asked Mr. Shaw the most about it this evening, he'd tell us that Clover was getting ready to put a new roof on it next week, and that the new windows were going in the week after that, and that everything was going to be wonderful if we just give it a little more time. I don't know, frankly. I know that the roof, I believe, we could probably issue a citation right now about the roof situation under our building code.
I do know Danny Bratton, had been having some conversations with him, but I don't know if he's had any, recently or anything. So.
I don't know that he has either. I did have communication with other members of the family that own that property who had expressed to me some time ago that there was going to be some action there, and so I put a little bit more faith in that because it wasn't coming from the person who we've typically been dealing with, but that hasn't come to fruition either, unfortunately.
Well, do we want to add that to the next meeting as well, and see where we're at and what steps we want to take?
I mean, we usually kick that around once a year, so we're about due.
I know. Yeah, it's about time. If Sandra, if you would add that to the next public improvement meeting agenda.
I will be happy to do so.
Thank you. Do we have any other comment from any of the aldermen? Do we have any public comment? Okay, we can leave public improvement and go into public works, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Bastian. We don't have Mr. Bratton with us on the call tonight, so I'll work through these items. First up, under old business, we have an update on the railroad cleanup that damaged Shoemaker Drive. I did work with our city engineer to get some estimates on what it would cost to fix different portions of Shoemaker Drive that we felt were damaged by the project there. I forwarded those to the project leader with AECom. He forwarded those to the railroad. He said that the railroad was willing to consider providing some restitution for helping repair that roadway. I tried to follow up with them again today. I wasn't able to make contact with them, but so where it stands is that I am waiting to hear back from the railroad as to what they are willing to do. So that is what I have to update on that. Any questions or concerns about it? All right, moving on to the next item, the update on the status of the road to the wastewater treatment plant. I am going to turn this over to Mr. Sheffer. I think I know what the latest is there, but I'll let him describe it as he can probably do it better than I can.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, we did sign the roadway around Jackie Creeker's house and Common, and we have gone out and staked that in her driveway, and have a meeting planned with her tomorrow at 1:30 to discuss the realignment of that roadway. Talked to the contractor a couple times, and he said that she she's okay with that, then he's ready to start. I don't really know why he hasn't started on the other end. He just told me that his intent was to do it all at one time.
Well, suffice to say, I think tomorrow we'll have some good conversation, and I think that Sierra Bravo is ready to go. And if we can't get some movement on that for the next couple of weeks, then I'll be ready to just pull the plug on Sierra Bravo. But I think we're getting close to being where we need to be.
They pulled their track all out of there, so you only got but a couple tractors down there with pans right now. They took everything else out.
Chief McBride here in the council chamber said he believed the Traco was back there today or yesterday apparently. So I knew they had moved some of that equipment out, and that certainly wasn't encouraging. All right, any other questions or comments on the wastewater treatment plant road? Hearing none, move into new business. We have consideration of bids for service improvements to Walnut Street intersections. As a part of the Walnut Street resurfacing through our city engineer, we have been taking a look at some of these approaches based upon the ones that were in the worst shape and the ones that had the most traffic flow. It's my understanding that, you know, if we don't do some of these approaches, that the area where the new pavement meets the old can quickly wear and whatnot. I'm not an expert in that type of thing, but Mr. Shepherd, do you want to speak to this a little bit?
Yeah, we did go in and look at these Aaron also looked at trying to get a list of what everybody considered the worst intersection. I think it's anytime you look at them, they seem to catch on you, but this is a list of what we thought was the worst, along with Aaron's list. We would get bids from Simon to, of course, assuming the milling and overlay on Walnut, and also from Sanron. I think those bids are in your packet. We did get a bid from Simons of $44,561.88 to do those intersections.
I guess my only concern about this is just whether or not it's, you know, we have the money to do it. I know that this is something we would probably like to do, but when I think about these types of things, is this really a need, or is this just something that we want to do? And then also, what does Scott Evans think about it in terms of the way that it would impact all the other things that we're trying to do out of motor fuel dollars? Scott, do you have any thoughts on this work?
Well, so your cash in motor fuel fund at this point is just a little over $800,000, because we did get one allotment of that $87,000 for infrastructure type thing. So that's why our cash is a little overinflated versus what it normally would be, I guess, at this point. And keep in mind, we still have a number of dollars that we have earmarked for 7th Street in the next couple of years. So $800,000 is a lot of money, it is, but we probably have another $300,000 plus probably locked up on the 7th Street project before it's done on our portion of it. So when yes, we could do it, but then does that keep us from doing something else that might be more crucial? I don't know the answer to that.
Mayor?
I heard Gary and Harold Shepherd both at the same time. I'll go to Gary first.
Well, it's a bid on this $44,561. Is that not less than our oil on chip was going to be?
Gary, I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah, Harold might know.
I think it was, but I do know somebody had mentioned that 7th Street was on that list, and I did talk to Bill Fenner when he prepared the talk with us, and his comment was that when the list came back to him, somebody had marked 7th Street to be the big oil and chip, so obviously that was about a fourth of the cost which could come out. I don't think there didn't need to spend any money on 7th Street on that north
most traveled street. If we can get it up and go, if it needs it, we need to do it. If it don't need it, then we don't need to do it. Look how long it's been since we done it the last time.
Well, I think, we have done some targeting on these specific intersections, so we're not just going, from one end to the other, spending money where it maybe isn't needed.
I mean, it's going to be a lot cheaper for Simon to do it, being they're already doing the road of Mellon and the main street to do them intersections. If you wait and do the intersections later, this bill's going to be a lot higher.
Yeah, I mean, you can see Tamrock price is $7,000 more just because of the mobilization they would have to do to come in there after these things have got done. So, one thing I would add about the $87,000 that we're getting from IDOT, that's high payments of that, so it's about $525,000. But there is a very limited way that we can use that money. So, I mean, if we can use some of that money for 7th Street as the city share, so that, it does open up some NFT money to use elsewhere.
Well,
Yeah, that's a fair point, Harold. One thing I would ask is, I know we got a bid from E.T. Simon or whoever's doing the approaches on the corners right now, and a bid to do our parking lanes when it came time to resurface Walnut Street. Do you remember what that bid was, Harold, for our cost process? The parking lanes were included with the overall project, and that is 80% federal participation, so the city's only paying 20% of that cost.
I think it was somewhere around $9,000, wasn't it?
Yeah, because they did also give the cities, under the safe routes to school, we're fixing one of their intersections for ADA compliance, so they gave the city, I think, an allowance of $7,000, $6,000, something like that. Okay, so that's not going to be a giant expense when it comes due. No.
all right, well, do I hear a motion to adopt these intersections to do this resurfacing to these approaches?
I would make a motion to do that and award it to E.T. Simons.
I would second that motion.
All right, I heard a motion from Alderman McComb and a second from Ms. Hughes. Clerk Hunziker, would you do a roll call on this for me, please?
Alderman Hughes. Alderman Hughes.
Yes.
Alderman Terry Whitson.
Yes.
Alderman Brown.
Yes.
Alderman Pearson.
Yes.
Alderman McComb.
Yes.
Alderman Urbis.
Yes.
Alderman Bastian.
Yes.
Alderman Campos.
Yes.
And Alderman Pittman.
Yes.
All right, thank you, everyone. Motion carries. All right, that is everything under new business. Is there any public comment regarding items under public works? Hearing none, I'll go into, come out of public works and go into public safety, chaired by Alderman Russell Brown. Russell?
Yeah, we got one item on the old business, discussion regarding the Gillenberg property. Have you talked to the county yet?
Yes, I have had a number of conversations, and I am understanding that the contractor to bring the building down is going to get started next week with bringing the building down. Apparently, the county and the Summers family and the insurance companies, I don't know if they've ever really resolved anything, but I know that the Summers family is essentially moving forward one way or the other.
Good deal.
Mayor, this is Alderman Hughes. I have a question. You said the contractor was going to bring the building down. Is that the same contractor that did the other part of the building?
Yes, it's the same contractor that did the first was part of it.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Okay, that's all we have on the old business. Don't have anything on new business. Any public comments? If not, we'll come out of public safety and go to personnel.
Thank you very much, Russell. Come out of public safety, go to personnel, chaired by Ms. Barbara Hughes. Barb?
The only thing I have actually in real business is just informational. I think that by next meeting, if we are meeting in person by then, that we should have ready for the council, contracts for the clerical public works and also for fire. It's just informational, but we should have that for you next meeting if we are meeting in person. There's nothing else under old business, no new business. I ask for any public comment on personnel. Hearing none, Mayor, we can get out of that.
Thank you very much, Ms. Hughes. That takes us to the mayor's report. We'll go to the ever steadfast agenda item, the Rubel flooding issue. Mr. Sheffer, is there anything to report?
I did talk to Scott Lee again, rather extensively, and his last comment to me was that he was more than he thought he was going to have to give up, so he is going to take his mother, who still, I guess, is in control of the trust, and take her out there to look at the areas that we're talking about trying to get, and he would get back with me. We have not been able to, I sent a certified letter to the neighbors, but no response. Tried the phone number that Eric had given me, he acquired that through the police department, but we've not been able to get in contact with any neighbors.
All right, thank you for that update. Any other comments or questions from council about that item? All right, that takes us next to the continuation of the review and discussion of the billboard ordinance. If you would remember from our last meeting, I said I would email out basically a summary of what we had talked about at the council, which I did last week to the members of the city council about the various things that we would maybe want to see as restrictions. I do have a letter that was sent to me today that was asked, that a resident asked that I share with the council about the issue of billboards at that location. And so I said I would share it. I'll do that now. It says, Dear Mayor Stevens, it's been brought to my attention that there is a potential buyer for the property located at the intersection on the east side of Country Club Road and Route 13. In previous Murphysboro City Council meetings, discussion has been made regarding a billboard being placed on this property. My husband and I own a home directly south of this property. This neighborhood is quiet, somewhat secluded, even with Walmart being right across the street. However, we have growing concerns over potential development in our backyard. I ask that you please take into consideration the following concerns when making a decision to allow future development on this property. Given that this property is approximately 5 acres, I'm unclear as to where a billboard will be placed. I ask that you look into ordinances in other towns regarding the distance between billboards in residential areas. It would benefit the residents of Robin Lane to have the billboard closer to Route 13 if possible to mitigate the potential visibility of the bright lights at night. Our children have bedroom windows that face in the direction of this property. The placement of this potential billboard is very important to the residents of this neighborhood. The last concern I have is that of water drainage. The land is level for development. Since the building of Walmart, we now have frequent flooding in areas around our homes located on Robin Lane. Thank you for your careful consideration of this new development. We want to support our community with the addition of new businesses. However, we would ask that the city help protect the homes of the residents who may be directly affected. And so that was the letter that I wanted to share. The process that we need to go through, if we want to go through it tonight, is that the council would need to recommend to the Zoning Board of Appeals that billboards be allowed as a special use in business 2, and we can kind of communicate along with that recommendation the limits, that we would like to see placed on them as we discussed before. So I think I've talked long enough. Is there any other consideration or comment from the council at this time?
Mayor, this is Alderman Hughes. I did want to make comment that I have had contact with 3 different residents in that same area that, made, contact with me of those same concerns that your letter is indicating. I, still have mixed emotions personally about this, but because we need the businesses, also understand the fact that right behind it is a residential area. But I just wanted to make it known there may be some public comment about this too. I don't know if any of those residents are on this call. If they are, I would ask you to please let them comment.
Absolutely. Are there any? Is there anyone on the line who wants to provide public comment on this particular agenda item?
Maybe not.
And I would
Here, this
just
is Alderman Pittman.
go ahead,
Can I say
WJ.
something? If we decide not to put up a billboard, that would be something we could do, but with it being zoned how it is, we couldn't prevent a business development from being there anyway for you.
I do understand that. I think it's the height and the lights of the billboard, WJ, that they have more concern about than businesses going there personally, but I don't know that for sure. Okay, thank you.
I guess one thing I could say is that a question was originally hoped that the billboard would be close to Route 13 if possible. We know that it would be as close to Route 13 as they could get it, and the sign would be facing east and west with the flow of traffic and not north and south, which would be projecting more light directly toward that neighborhood. So that's just sort of logistically the way that it lays out.
And I think that's important.
Will Alderman McComb, we went to all the trouble to get this property in the city limits, and now we got a person a chance to develop it. If they develop it, fix their drainage right, it's not gonna cause any water problems out there because it'll run right down by the airport road, and, there shouldn't be any drainage bothered there.
All right, well, I believe that would be correct. Is there anyone who wants to make a motion to recommend to the Zoning Board of Appeals the consideration of this amendment to the P2 zoning district?
I'll make that motion, Alderman.
I'll make it.
All right.
I'll second it.
I hear a motion from Mr. McComb, and I hear a second from Alderman Pearson. I would like a roll call vote on this particular item.
Alderman Hughes,
Sorry, I was on mute, yes.
Alderman Curry-Witzman,
Yes.
Alderman Brown,
Yes.
Alderman Pearson,
Yes.
Alderman McComb,
Yes.
Alderman Urbis,
Yes.
Alderman Bastian,
Yes.
Alderman Campos,
Yes.
Alderman Pittman.
Yes.
All right, motion carries, and just again to remind everyone, this doesn't change the ordinance at this time. It only sends the recommendation to zoning, which will then have to publish a notification, 15 days, and then they'll have a hearing and have to consider this and then send their recommendation back. And so that's where we stand. Okay, moving into the next item, we have discussion regarding noise from the asphalt plant. I have received a number of messages from people who live in the Barbarossa subdivision who are saying that the asphalt plant in the industrial park creates a lot of noise that is very loud in that neighborhood. I have went out and met with people there, and I have heard the noise itself. It certainly is a noise that can be heard in the Barbarossa subdivision. I met with the Mr. Fricky and Mr. Murray from Samron, earlier this week on Monday morning, and after discussion with them, they did agree that they would research potential solutions, things that could be done to perhaps absorb or knock down the noise, and they said that they would get back to us on what those solutions might be. And so I promised the residents who would come to me with that I would put it on the agenda and that I would try to mediate some kind of solution, and that's where it stands. I'd entertain any questions or comments about the matter at this time. All right, hearing none, I'll move on from that particular item to the next item on the agenda, which is a correspondence from Don Seifert. And I would like to read this into the record as it came to me on, it's dated June the 13th, Saturday. We do have a few members of the fire department here in the council chambers with us. It says, Dear Mayor, I would like to honor 3 firefighters, Jim Murphy, Chris Morber, and Dave Mason. My wife Nancy had a medical emergency. We live in a 2-story house, and I was very concerned how the 2 EMTs were going to get her down the stairs. I looked out the window, and there was the fire truck, and the next thing I noticed was 3 firefighters in their bright red T-shirts in the room. My wife was in a chair and had to taken to the backboard on the bed. Once she was secured, the firefighters took their positions and carried Nancy to the head of the steps, 15. It was amazing watching them, and no one said a word as they got into position, lined her up, and carried her down the stairs. That was professionalism at its best. For them, they were just carrying her down the stairs, but to me, it showed how well trained they are and how professionally they do their job. They have made an everlasting impression on me. I'm so proud of these gentlemen, and I am sure the other firefighters are the same. Thank you very much, Don Seifert. And Chief McBride, I know in this situation, if you want to share anything on your behalf with the council, please approach and do so.
Yeah, that same day, about 2 hours prior to that, the same crew responded to a baby that was having extreme difficulty breathing and was in dire straits. They arrived prior to the ambulance as the ambulance had been tied up and mitigated that situation. Before the ambulance got there, I received a call from Kent Schaefer, the director of the ambulance service, praising the efforts of Jim Murphy, Dave Mason, and Chris Morber on that call, and said that they had obviously made a huge difference and that the ambulance crew had high praise for them in that situation. So within 2 hours, those were 2 of the calls that we got going on, and we just want to recognize that they're out there doing the job, and they don't ask for any real thanks or whatever, but they're making a difference.
Certainly, and they are here in the council chambers with us, and I just want to look each one of you in the eye and say thank you so much. Appreciate your service and your professionalism to the whole city council and the residents. Again, we thank you. All right, I wanted to make sure that we shared that. Those things are probably some of the most important things that we do. With that, I would like us to go to council member requests, and I will go first to W.J. Pittman.
I have nothing, Mayor, thank you.
Go to Russell Brown.
Nothing.
Go to Bill Pearson.
Mayor, I tried to call here and evidently he's on vacation or something. I would like somebody in public works to come by and pick up some limbs on Elm Street and elderly folks across the street. They moved down over the weekend. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pearson. I'm sure Tim Lee will take note of that and help to coordinate that effort.
I'm making a note.
Thank you. We go to Mr. McComb. Gary McComb, are you still on the line? All right, we'll go to Gloria Campos.
Nothing, Mayor. I just really want to thank our firemen for their service. It really brought pride and a Congratulations, Chief, and all your staff.
Thank you very much, Gloria. We'll go to Mr. Irvis.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I also want to add my thanks to the three firefighters and really all the firefighters. Their emergency calls really do make a difference in our city. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Irvis, for that. We'll go to Ms. Hughes.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to also ditto that. These guys are doing a great job, and there's so many times that the ambulance just can't get there as quickly as our emergency medical crew can, and I think Chief McBride for making sure that that's happening. I also would like to ask for you all to remember in your prayers Chief Ellenar's family. His wife has had an illness recently, and we need to keep him in our thoughts and prayers. That's all I have.
Thank you very much, Barb. We'll go to Ms. Curry Witzman.
I just want to say thank you to Tim Lee and his guys. We ended up with a sinkhole that came kind of out of nowhere on our block, and it was after hours, and I placed the call in, and they came right over, checked it out, and got it filled in like immediately. So I just want to say thank you to Tim and his guys.
Thank you very much, Janice. And we'll go to Mr. Bastian. Mike Bastian, are you still on the call? All right, I believe that's all of the members of the City Council. I'll go to department head requests, and I'll start with Ms. Valley.
Thank you. I'd like to apologize. I had a problem, some technical difficulties earlier, but I would like to shout out to Chris McCroy on his retirement and his, I believe, 37 years of service to the city. And I know that him and the public works guys worked really hard to put something together for him to make him feel acknowledged and appreciated.
Thank you very much for noticing that and bringing that up, Catherine. Yeah, certainly his many years of service to the city not going by without being noticed, and that was a really good thing that the Public Works Department did for him last Friday. Anything further, Catherine?
I do not. Thank you so much.
All right, we'll go to Mr. Manwaring.
I have nothing this evening, thank you.
We'll go to Ms. Ripley.
I just want to give a big thank you to Brian Manwaring for always being there in his multiple roles with the city, whether it be dealing with the pandemic or dealing with no phones, no computers, or whatever we've got going on, especially on a Monday morning. So I just want to say thank you.
Thank you for that, Ms. Ripley, and again, thank you to Brian for his hard work. Clerk Hunziker? Clerk Hunziker says she has nothing. Chief McBride?
Nothing, sir.
He says he has nothing else. Mr. Shepherd?
I have nothing further, Mayor.
All right, Ed Heller?
I have nothing further, Mayor.
Mr. Kennedy?
I have nothing, thank you.
Mr. Evans?
Nothing further for me, thank you.
Mr. Gladson?
I have nothing, thank you.
Mr. Lee?
Real quick, and just to add to what Catherine said, Chris McCroy, again, at 37 years here at the city, he worked in the street department for several years, and he was my right hand for the last several. And his last day is Friday, so if anyone runs into him this week, give him a shout or a wave or a thumbs up. Other than that, I have nothing.
Thank you very much, Tim. Is there anyone else who has joined the call on city staff that I did not realize? Anybody else that I've missed? All right, not hearing anything, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Is it that?
All right, we have a motion from Ms. Campos. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Ms. Hughes. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All right, any opposed? Motion carries. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Good night, Murphysboro. Thank you.